Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, and welcome to our second webinar for the PropelHer Conference. My name is Natalie Torres, and I'm happy to act as your webinar host today. We have a total of 4 sessions over the next week, including this one, that we hope will help you with your pitch and your overall business presentation. Today, our webinar focuses on financials, and we have with us Christopher Woodward, sorry about that, Christopher, who brings a wealth of business and entertainment experience to Full Sail University in his current role as a course director in the Entertainment Business Masters of Science program. He is joining us for our 4th year as a speaker and is a topic expert on entrepreneurial funding options for women business owners in NAVA Orlando's Women Who Win Accelerator program. I'm excited to hear everything that Christopher has to share with us. And so without further ado, I'll go ahead and let him get started.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. And it's a pleasure to be back. This is, I believe, my 4th year now with the PropelHer competition. But we're going to get right into it. And the first thing we're going to talk about is, why do we focus on finance, right? Think of accounting as what you've done in the past. Finance is about planning for what you're going to do in the future. And as you can see on the slide, a lot of new businesses fail to anticipate all of the costs that they're going to incur prior to and during the first few years of business. A lot of times as entrepreneurs, we focus so much on the product, the service we want to deliver, and specific things associated to that, that maybe we neglect a lot of the other costs, a lot of the other expenses that are going to come up in setting up and running the business. And what we've learned is that businesses that forecast their revenue and expenses, that plan for the future, have a much higher success rate than those that do not. So one of the keys to making sure that right out of the gate you don't run into money issues is to think about those startup costs, the one-time costs of opening a business. Sometimes people refer to it as, seed capital, startup money, startup investment. So the goal is, before you jump into creating your business, think of everything and anything you would need to pay for prior to getting started. One of the mistakes so many new businesses make is they try to jump right in, and then before you know it, they run out of cash, they run out of money, they're scrambling. There's a lot of expenses that pop up that they weren't anticipating. So the goal is, before you even get started, think about everything and anything you would need to pay for to get that business started. And I have a short list, and there's the joke, there's the short list of things and costs and expenses that you're going to have to handle. And remember, these are costs and expenses that you're going to have to handle before you have any revenue coming in. Your business is not open yet. You don't have a steady flow of revenue from your product or service. So these costs, these expenses are going to have to come out of your own pocket, or out of a loan, or out of investors, or from other sources. So I have the list here. I just want to touch upon the items a little bit. Right away, your facilities. Where are you conducting this business out of? Does it involve purchasing land or a building? Maybe it just involves renting a space, so you have the initial rent costs involved. If you're renting or moving into a building, there could be deposits for security, utilities, things like that. You got to turn on the lights. Unless the space you move into is ready-made for your purposes, you have improvements and remodeling that you're going to need done. You might need equipment. Equipment is something a lot of businesses need, and that's one cost that a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, will focus on. They know exactly what equipment they need. But on the flip side, a lot of them don't think about something like furniture. I've seen many business plans that have extensive lists of equipment that they want, things they want to have installed in their office space, their workshops. And then I'll look at the list and I'll say, where are you going to sit? because they don't list couches or chairs or desks or tables. You need those things too. Somebody has to pay for those. For some businesses, it might be production hardware that you need. For many, it's computers, it's software program. You need a phone. Don't know of any business that doesn't have a phone. Depending on what your service or business, your product is, you might need materials and supplies to create it. At the same time, something like office supplies will get forgotten. Pens, paper, Post-it notes. When people are budgeting or planning out a budget to start their business, a lot of times they forget about those things. Oh yeah, I need pens too. Oh, I need paper. I need Post-it notes. I need paper clips. All these little things, they cost money as well. For some of you, you might want to be creating stationery, business cards. As technologically advanced as the world has become, the 3x5 business card still hasn't been replaced. For some of you, you might be creating brochures, pamphlets, some type of material to hand out, again, to let people know your business is coming. There's website design. Maybe you need a vehicle. Maybe you need a truck or a car for your business. I have materials and supplies listed a second time. Why? Because sometimes you'll create something and then realize you're going to need a lot more than you thought in the first place. Licenses and permits, that's a big one. You have to be very careful with this because of the way municipalities work out. Sometimes you could be in one town and you don't need a license or a permit for your business. And you could literally drive 5 miles down the road and now you need a license for that business in that area. Trade or professional memberships, advertising, promotional activities. Here's a big one, which again, a lot of people don't think about, but insurance. If you have equipment, if you have property, you're putting a lot of money into building up, creating your business, you want to protect it. So you're probably going to want some sort of property insurance. You also will definitely want to look into liability insurance. We live in a very litigious world where everybody's getting sued all the time. So insurance is something you're going to want to think about, even at the early stages of starting your business. Obviously, people like attorneys, accountants, the sooner you can kind of shuffle off the accounting to accountants, usually more people are happier that way, but those cost money. Maybe you need a marketing or management consultant, a design, a technical consultant. In other words, there's a lot of expenses that you are going to need to pay for, either out of your own pocket or from a loan or from an investor, before you can even open the doors, before you can start putting out that product or that service. So one of the things I suggest to all entrepreneurs is make that list. List every possible expense you can think of and take advantage of an organization like NABO and talk to the other business owners, talk to the other people in this organization. Ask them, hey, are there any costs you failed to recognize in the beginning? Was there anything that popped up on you that was a shock that, oh, I need this, or I'm going to need more of this? Take advantage of the knowledge available from this organization. Think about those other things you need to pay for so you can prepare for it and not have it surprise you later. You want to think out and write down all the possible components of the startup investment. And then once you've done that, once you've made your list and you've priced it, and you say, okay, I'm going to need X amount of dollars to really get this business started, take that number and add another 10% to it, whatever that number is. Take your total startup costs, add another 10%. It's a contingency fund, because I guarantee no matter how well you plan and no matter how well you map things out, you're going to end up needing more cash for something. Something will break, something you will need more of. So it's better to have that cushion, that safety net of a contingency fund. So that way, if things do end up costing more than you anticipated, it doesn't stop you in your progress of building up and opening the business. Now, that's prior to opening the doors, which means that when you actually open up and get started with your business, you're not going to be at zero. You're going to be way below zero because you're going to have spent so much money just getting the business started. Well, that's where a little tool called the payback period can come in and really help you out. What the payback period is once your business is open, once you're selling that product or service, but you're also looking at how much money you spent, you ask yourself, how long will it take me to recoup all the money I already spent on starting this business? So I give an example here. So let's say you spent $180,000 to start your business. And once your business is up and rolling, let's say you're pulling in around $10,000 in revenue every month. Well, 180,000 divided by 10,000 gives you a payback period of 18 months. So what is that doing? That's telling you, okay, it's going to take me about 18 months to fill in the hole that I made spending all this money to start the business. It's going to take me 18 months. That's important as a business owner from a psychological standpoint. Because what many of us do is after we've been in business for a year, we'll reflect and say, geez, I still haven't made back the money I put into the business. Well, if you know it's going to take you 18 months to make back that money, you're not going to stop and reflect after a year. You're going to stop and reflect after 18 months and say, okay, where am I? And I like to say that payback period is a living, breathing number and that you can recalculate it. Because chances are your business is not going to have the exact same amount of revenue coming in every month. So you can calculate this as your revenue goes up, or unfortunately, as your revenue goes down. But the idea of the payback period is it's a tool to give you an idea of how long it will take your business to recoup all of those initial startup costs that you had to pay for. Another tool that's helpful once you've determined your startup costs is to take into consideration the ongoing expenses that are going to occur once your product or service is launched and bringing in revenue. And again, a lot of this is estimating and forecasting and predicting what your revenue will be. And while a sales forecast is never going to be exact, it can be your guide in determining when your business will break even. So it's important to try to estimate, okay, what's my monthly revenue going to be? And what are my monthly expenses going to be? So we can kind of figure out a break even point for your business for the month or year. In other words, this is going to be another tool to tell you, okay, how much do I need to sell every month to kind of break even? What are my goals that I'm going to try to hit to lift my business up? Because ultimately the goal of your business is to make enough revenue to cover all of your expenses. Because once you have covered all of your expenses, the next dollar you make is going to be profit. So I want to show you an example of a break-even analysis here. Let's say your business has fixed costs of $60,000. So fixed cost means these are costs that your business is going to incur, and it doesn't matter if you sell one product, 100 products, 0 products. You're going to be paying these bills. Fixed costs would be things like paying your rent, paying your insurance, paying your employees. Doesn't matter how many units you sell, you have to pay those costs. So say a business has that fixed cost of $60,000. Now let's say you're selling an item. Let's say it's a keychain, and you sell the keychain for $2 a unit. That would be your price. And let's say each keychain costs you 80 cents to make it. It's 80 cents worth of plastic and metal and labor. So if we take the price that you sell the keychain for, $2, and we subtract the variable cost, the cost that went into making that keychain, 80 cents, that gives us what's called the contribution margin. So we're going to take the fixed costs of our business, $60,000, and we're going to divide it by that contribution margin, the $2 minus the 80 cents. So that's $60,000 divided by $1.20. That gives us an answer of 50,000 units. So what this is doing is this is telling us we need to sell at least 50,000 units to break even. That gives us a goal. That gives us something to work for. If you know you have orders of 50,000 units coming in for your product, you know you're going to break even. And as soon as you sell 50,001, you'll have a profit of $1.20. On the flip side, if you don't have orders of 50,000, if you're way below 50,000 units, then you're aware that, okay, I'm not going to break even for this year. I'm going to suffer a loss. And you may have to think about how you're funding things as a result. When it comes to forecasting those anticipated sales against your expenses, what you want to do is try to plan it out, but you also want to take note of any months where you might suffer a cash shortfall, right? Because a lot of times products and services can be seasonal. You might have a product that's going to sell gangbusters all throughout the fall and the winter, but then in the spring and summer, there's going to be a drop in sales. Or vice versa. You could have a product that sells extremely well in the warm weather months, but once the temperature drops down a little, which does happen here in Orlando now and again, you're going to lose sales. So that's why it's a good idea to not just kind of forecast for the next month or 2 months, but rather for a full year. Because once you're forecasting, once you're predicting, and that's what we mean by forecasting, predicting your sales and your expenses over the next year, you can look at the months that have a shortfall, the months that you're not going to make enough money to cover all your expenses. We call that month, that number that you're going to get, that's going to be your working capital requirement. In other words, that's going to be the amount of money that you're going to need from other sources to cover your expenses during months where your revenue does not. And that's a big key, because you are going to have months where the revenue isn't going to cover all the expenses. And in those cases, it'd be better to know about it in advance so you can plan for it. If you know that June and July and August, your business is not going to make enough revenue to cover all the expenses, then you have time to figure out, okay, how will I cover? Where will I get that money from? Do I have surpluses other months that I can put aside to cover those lean months? Do I need to take out a loan? Do I need to bring in more equity? In other words, investor money or money out of your own pockets? You take that working capital requirement, the money you need until your business is breaking even. And if you add that to your startup costs, that's the amount of money that you would actually need to not only start your business, but to keep it running for the first year. And that could be a very intimidating number, because it could be huge. What I suggest, and what I actually teach here at Full Sail University, is to have students create, and entrepreneurs create, a pro forma financial statement. Something that's going to list all the startup costs, all the monthly expenses, and forecast their revenue as a tool to help them in planning for the future. Now, I'm going to show you a little screenshot here of what the pro forma statement looks like. So this tab right here, and you can create one of these in Excel, and I'm more than happy to share a blank template with anyone. Just contact me via email after the session. This right here breaks down all of your startup costs. You'll see it has costs and assets listed separately. The difference is this is all money you're spending before your business can get started. But I break it into these two groups because assets are things of physical substance, like furniture and computers and equipment, that you'll be able to depreciate and write off as business expenses on your taxes. You can show your accountant what you purchased so they can write it off on your taxes as a business expense. Costs are things you pay for to start your business that don't have physical value, so you can't write those off on your taxes. But you create one tab with all of your startup costs, including your contingency fund, and that's how much money it costs to get the business started. You then create, and I know this is a little scary looking for those of you that don't like spreadsheets, but you then create a pro forma sheet that looks at all of your revenue that you have coming in, that you're forecasting to come in over the next year, and all of your expenses, all of the money you're going to be spending, paying out over the course of the year. And that can help you determine what your net profit or loss is going to be each month in the next year. And from there, you can find that working capital requirement. The goal with any tools like this is to just help you plan ahead, plan for how much money you will need to get the business started. Because before your business gets started, the money has to come from one of only a few areas. Because your product, your service is not ready to sell yet, you don't have revenue coming in yet. So the first thing you need to do is figure out, where am I getting the money to start this business? For many entrepreneurs, the first place they have to look is their own pockets, their own bank accounts. It's your personal funds, money you have saved up, money you have put aside, money from another job, another business you're running. That's the first source for almost all people. Then we have loans. Now, the issue with loans, of course, is you're involving financial institutions, you're involving banks, and they're going to want interest. And obviously, a lot of people are a little skittish of taking out loans, small business loans and whatnot, because of having to pay back the interest. But loans is an option. And, again, some people will use their house and take equity loans. Everyone has different situations. But a loan situation is where you're getting money from a financial institution with you promising to pay it back at a future date, regardless of whether or not your business is successful. And then we have investors. And when it comes to investors, I tend to break them down into three categories. The first set of investors is your friends and family. Friends and family are great as investors because they don't really invest in the business. Friends and family invest in you. They might not even understand your business, but they believe in you, and that's why they invest. That said, I always recommend, if you are going to have friends and family investing in your business, they should not be investing more than 5% of their liquid net worth. Because there is a possibility, and nobody likes to think about this, but there is a possibility they may never get back that investment. So don't let your grandmother sell the family jewels. Don't let your grandfather mortgage his house in order to pay for your business idea. Only take money from them that they're okay losing potentially. Outside of friends and family, we have angel investors, individual investors who will put money into a business. They're looking for a return, but angel investors will usually come in when you have a little more than an idea. Maybe you have a prototype, beta testing, you have something more than just an idea. When they see that you've done some work on it already, that's where the angels come in. And then on a much bigger level, you have venture capitalist funds. These are large groups of investors looking for businesses that are already out there and are taking off like a rocket ship. Obviously, at the early stage of starting a business as an entrepreneur, you're really looking at personal funds, loans, friends and family early on. And once you have something in the works, again, a prototype, a beta test of a service, that's where you'll probably pull in the angel investors. Now, when it comes to financing a business, and financing just means getting the money for your business, a lot of people break it down into stages. So they'll say that the seed stage of financing a business is the money you need to take your idea and make it more than just an idea. Right? You have a thought in your head, you have something you scribbled on the back of a napkin one day. You want some money to take it from that and make it something a little more tangible. That's seed stage. Then the financing, the money you need for the early stage, sometimes called startup stage or first stage, that's when you're actually building the business. You're getting things together, you're building it up, you're putting time, effort, money. It's not just an idea now, it's something real that you're creating. And then you launch it, right? You launch it when we're entering into that formative stage, right? We're going from, I have this idea and I'm putting it all together and now I can have customers. Now I can put it out there and get revenue from it. And then from there, we move to what's called the latter stage or the third stage, expansion stage, bridge stage. It has a dozen different names. All it really means is your business is out there, you are open for business, you have customers, but you are growing. And you want to be able to handle the growth, right? You have more demand for your product. You need to open another location. You need to buy more equipment. You need to buy more supplies to keep up with it. That's the next financing stage. But ultimately, Your financing stages are determined simply by the question, do I need more money to take the next step with my business? Now, when it comes to talking to investors, whether it's an angel investor, whether it's an angel group, which is a group of individual investors working together, but not necessarily investing together. Some people compare that to Shark Tank sometimes, although it's not quite the same. You need to convey a lot of things to your investors, because potential investors, I should say, because they're going to want to know, okay, what are your plans for my money and what are you going to do with it? So I often talk about what you need to convey when you're pitching to a potential investor. There's a person who is interested in possibly putting their money into your service, your product. What do you need to convey to them to convince them to put the money into your product or service? So I have a list here of things you need to convey to them. And here's the thing about pitching to an investor. Most angel investing and venture capitalist pitches only go about 10 to 15 minutes. So you don't have a lot of time when you're pitching. These are the things you need to convey: integrity, passion, experience, knowledge, skill, leadership, commitment, vision, realism, and coachability. And you got to do all this in 15 minutes. You need to pitch integrity. A potential investor wants to know that you are serious about this, but they also want to know that this isn't just some sort of front to get money for something else. They want to know that this isn't some lark that you're not really taking seriously. They want to believe that you are committed to making this business happen. You have to convey passion. If there is no passion for making this business work, then you are not going to get any money at all. They want to feel that you're excited about what you are talking about and what you are pitching to them. Experience. Now, experience sometimes worries people, especially new entrepreneurs, because, well, they've never started a business before. It's their first time starting a business. But that's okay. It doesn't have to be experience necessarily starting a business, although that is a good thing. It could just be experience in the industry, experience being around the industry. If you've never in any way, shape, or form been involved in the industry you are entering, that can be worrisome to an investor, And again, experience could just be literally, you're doing a business for a fitness center and you used to volunteer at a fitness center. Just some connection you have with the industry you are entering. Knowledge, of course, is very important. You need to know the players. You need to know what the market is like, what the industry is like. If someone told me they were going to open up a theme park and they said they never heard of Disney World, I would be very worried about that. So you have to have knowledge about the industry, the area of business you're entering. You have to convey that you have skill. There must be something you're bringing to the table that's going to make this business venture a success. You want to convey leadership, because you're asking these investors to put money into a business that you're going to lead. You're going to take that money and you are going to make more money with it, which ties into commitment. I need to know as an investor that whoever I'm giving money to for their business, they're going to fight, scratch, and claw. And with their last dying breath, they're going to take that money and they're going to make more money with it. That commitment is important, because I've never seen a business where bad things don't happen. Bad things will happen. An investor wants to know that you are going to stay committed and you are going to work through the challenges. You need to convey that you have a vision, a summit, a peak of where this business is going to go. How are you going to change the world? What's the potential for this? But at the same time, an investor is also going to want to know that you're realistic. You understand the pitfalls out there, the competition, the things that could cause a disruption in your business plan. And lastly, an investor is going to want to know that you are coachable. Investors have a lot of experience in business, and they want to know that you're going to heed their experience. You cannot just look at an investor as if they're, a human ATM machine spitting out cash at you. They're going to want to know that you're going to listen to them when they have suggestions for your business. And given that all of you are a part of NABO, I'm pretty sure you're all very coachable and open to listening to advice from more experienced people. Now, when it comes to actually pitching and how to put together an effective pitch, I have just a little checklist here of things you can do when pitching to an investor or an investment group. First of all, always start with your company logo. If you don't have a company logo, get a company logo. And don't ever draw out the introductions. You don't need to say today is February 2nd. I am in Orlando, Florida. It is a balmy 81 degrees out. No, just need to say, this is my business, right? Put up that logo, thank them for listening to you, and get right into your pitching. Give them a business overview. And when I say a business overview, I'm talking one sentence, maybe two sentences. That's it. Very short and concise. For example, if I were to pitch Full Sail University to someone, I would say, Full Sail University, we provide education to students looking to enter the entertainment industry. And that's it. I would not list all the degree programs. I would not talk about awards we've won. Very simple and concise. That's what your business overview should be. From there, you talk about your management team. Who's involved? This is where you can talk about your accolades, or if you have talented people with skill sets on your team, you could talk about them. Then be prepared to talk about the market that you're entering. There has to be people out there willing to spend money in your marketplace. And the market for your product or service is not everybody. Because last time I checked, the only product or service that everybody uses is water. So unless you're selling water, you got to kind of pare down. Who is the group of individuals that will be paying money for your product or service? And once you've defined who that market is, then talk about your product or service. Your product or service, what are you bringing to this market? And don't get overly detailed when you pitch about your product or service. I know there's a tendency to want to talk about every, intricacy in what you are selling. But remember, you're limited on time when you pitch. So you want to kind of get to the point. I have a friend who once said, which I thought was a great quote, when someone asks you what time it is, you don't tell them how to build a watch. You just tell them what time it is. So it's telling them what this product or service is. Once they're interested, then you'll be able to talk to them in the future about all the details. You need to be able to talk about the business model for what you're doing. In other words, what is that contribution margin? How much does it cost to make, and how much will you clear every time you sell a unit or service? You're also going to want to talk about your strategic relationships. If you set up a relationship with a supplier or a distributor or a location already, talk about that. Because honestly, strategic relationships, that's a validator to an investor that you've already been working on the idea, that you are moving forward with it, that even if I don't invest in you, you're going to move ahead with this because you're already making inroads. You also want to be able to talk about your competition. There's no reason to praise the competition. You can also point out what makes you better than the competition, but you do need to be open about the fact that there is competition out there for you. You want to talk about your barriers to entry. There's a reason you're asking for this money from an investor. What's the reason? What is the barrier that's up that you need to overcome that you need this money for? Obviously, financial overview. Before any investor puts money into a business, they're going to want to know your sales records if you have sales. If you don't have sales, they're going to want to know how much money has been put into the business already. This is the dollars and cents of the business that they are going to get involved in. You also want to pitch the use of the proceeds. What exactly will you do with this money? You're asking for money for a reason. Why? And then we come to what's called the capital evaluation. This is where you tell the investor, this is how much money I want, and this is how much of the company, what percentage of the company I'm willing to give up to get it. And this is where negotiation can sometimes take place. But if you have all of these items rehearsed and ready in your head before you talk to an investor, it will make pitching to them much smoother. And then it's a matter of negotiation. Now, I do want to touch upon one more item here. I want to talk to you about the intersection of finance and marketing, because I find with a lot of entrepreneurs, especially new entrepreneurs, there's a lot of focus on, I know I need to spend money to create the product or service, but how much should I be spending to market it? How much should I be spending to advertise the product or service? Well, ultimately, a lot of it depends. You know, your businesses are not all going to be the same. The nature of your business, the number of years you've been in operation, your existing network and relationships you have, your audience, this all plays into marketing your business. Not every business was meant to be put up on billboards on the side of the road. Not every business was meant to rely exclusively on social media marketing, search engine optimization techniques. Ultimately, what you need to decide when it comes to spending money on marketing and how much you should budget and allocate is, what can you get for less? So when you're thinking about how much money to spend on marketing your company, the first thing you want to do is you want to leverage any relationships you have, because that's free. If you have an existing relationship with someone and you can get them to plug your business, hang a sign for your business, put flyers for your business in their location, business cards, things like that, that is a great way to get word out about your business, and it costs you nothing. You definitely want to leverage those relationships. When you're at networking events like these NABO events, that's your chance to tell people about your business, and it didn't cost you any money. It's cost you some time. So first, leverage your relationships. From there, then we get into where you need to start spending money. Establishing your branding, creating a logo, creating awareness about it, getting it out there, social media. These are things that will cost money, but not necessarily a large amount of money, and can help you start to reach your audience. From there, you get to the more expensive, right? Sponsorship at events, paying to have a tent at an event or a fair, paying for table space at a convention, traditional advertising, buying commercial time, buying ads on billboards, things like that. That's going to cost more money, but could help you in expanding and reaching your audience. The most expensive is obviously to hire somebody outside, hire an advertising agency, hire a marketing agency. That's going to cost you more money. The point is that when it comes to marketing your business and the amount of money you need to spend, make sure that you're exhausting the free and the things with $1 sign first before you take that next step and spend more money on marketing and more money on advertising. So that's going to wrap up my formal presentation. I know we have a few more things to go over here, but if there are any questions you want to type them in the chat room, I'd be happy to answer them right now. Otherwise, Nellis, I'll turn things back over to you for these last few slides.
All right. Well, Christopher, thank you so much for that excellent presentation. What I'll do is we'll go through those next slides. Actually, I don't think I have access to, so if you could move it forward, there you go. We'll go ahead with these next slides. And in the meantime, anybody that has questions, do put them in the chat. We'll check them and see if there are any questions, okay? In the meantime, just remember that if you're going to prepare to compete in this pitch competition, NABO's website, NABO Orlando's website does have all of the information you'll need. But very quickly, make sure that you check the website, submit your entry form and payment. We encourage you to continue to participate in these webinars, prepare your materials. This would include your introductory video, executive summary, preliminary pitch deck. Also, if you are an established business, don't forget that you're going to need your financial statements and EIN. Everything needs to be uploaded by February 24, 2023. That's an important deadline, so please keep that in mind. And then once you've submitted all of that, there's going to be some judges that will review it all. The finalist will be announced on March 9th. And then we will hold the Take Flight Business Conference March 30th, 2023. So if you all could just keep all of that in mind. I do see, let's see, we do have some questions. Let's see. Selena, what are some tips and resources you can provide regarding valuation of a startup company?
Oh, good question. So obviously, what is the value of your company? So the first step that I always say when you're figuring out the value of your company is figure out the value of all of the assets you have. In other words, the equipment you have, the things that you have paid for that are part of this company. That's your starting point. That's strictly what we call the book value of the company. In other words, if you were to close your business and sell all your equipment and furniture and everything, okay, how much would that be worth? So that's your starting point, the book value. Then from that point, how much revenue, if you're already making sales, does your company bring in? Figuring that out will give you an idea of, okay, well, then my company is worth my book value, all the assets I have, and it's worth this much in revenue every year. Now, how many years you want to tack on to that, it could be 5 years, 10 years, but that's how much your company would be worth, the assets it has and the potential revenue it's bringing in. Now, that's the valuation for you. You may want to up that amount, obviously, before you sell to an investor. One of the things that I often recommend is try to do as much as you can before bringing in an investor. The reason for that is the more you can do without their money, the more money you can ask from them for a smaller percentage of your company. If you're at the startup phase where you have no revenue coming in, you really aren't in a great negotiating position when it comes to selling a percentage of your company other than the assets you have. But if you're able to actually get the business started, get revenue in there, then you're going to be able to ask for a larger sum of money for a smaller percentage because you're going to show that there is revenue and potential in there as well. So I hope that helps out a little bit.
All right, I think that was an excellent response, Christopher. We have one additional question here. How does having an investor affect a business's socioeconomic status, such as WOSB, women-owned small business?
Well, honestly, it depends on how you want to look at things. I tend to go with the money is green, no matter where it came from. But obviously, your perception in society is going to be tied to your investors, especially if your investors are publicly known. So obviously, if you're pushing yourself as being a solely woman-owned business, and then somebody finds out that your main investor is some male entrepreneur, then somebody could potentially take a shot at you and say, well, you're a woman-owned business, but you got this man supporting you or something like that. My suggestion, though, is if your intent is true and you are the primary majority owner of that business, then it is a woman-owned business. Yes, you may have a investor who is male, or you may be getting a loan from a bank, but you are still the primary owner, the majority owner of this business. That makes it a woman-owned business.
Okay. Excellent. I tend to agree. And also, somebody's saying in the chat the same thing that I was going to say.
Yeah, well, and right there, make sure you've maintained 51% ownership of your business, which in all honesty, you should always be maintaining actually 50.01% of ownership you should always maintain. But I guess for them, it has to be 51%.
Yeah, and I think that's true for a lot of the programs, and whether it's veterans or minority owned and those kinds of things, it has to be 51.
If an investor wants to own the majority of your business and you don't want to sell the investor the majority of your business, then you say, thank you very much, but I'm not interested in selling the majority of my business to you.
Absolutely.
Remember, an investor can only buy what you're willing to sell to them.
Okay, any other questions?
Great question.
That was the very good questions. Well, with that then, unless we get anything else, we're going to go ahead and move to the last thing that I'm going to share with you today. And that is that we have other webinars coming up. We have a focus on marketing strategies tomorrow at noon and a focus on leadership on Monday at noon. So I hope that you all can make it to those. If you can't make it, we will make these presentations available as archive sessions. I believe that they're going to be posted on the NABO website. And you should look on their website. It's naboorlando.org, and they've got all of the contest rules on there and all of the information that you will need. I see there's one additional question. Does NABO provide example materials, for example, videos, pitch decks for competitors? Selena, my answer is I'm not sure. I don't believe that they do, but I could be wrong. I would check directly with NABO, and I guess I should have said early on, I don't know if I did, that I am also with Full Sail University as the sponsor for these webinars. I'm not sure that we have anybody with NABO on right now. So please do reach out to naboorlando.org and check with them. And I do see that Christopher has shared his email address for anybody that wants to reach out and speak with him. He has an immense amount of knowledge. So I hope that you will reach out and that you'll make the most of all of these webinars and the speakers that are being made available to you as competitors. So with that, I want to say thank you to Full Sail, our speaker, Christopher Woodward, and NABO Orlando for this great session. I want to ask everybody to just keep in mind that these are going to continue. The next two sessions are coming up. I hope that you will join us and have a good rest of the day.